Thank you for joining us on another episode of BSTV. Last week we gave you a few quotes from the Urantia book. This week we're going to give you another inspiring quote and also introduce you to The Peace Pilgrim, another inspiring book that we read. The Urantia book quote is, "Man's greatest spiritual jeopardy consists in partial progress, the predicament of unfinished growth, forsaking the religions of fear without immediately grasping the revelatory religion of love."
Right. As most of you know, a lot of people are losing interest in organized religion, and oftentimes not only stopping attendance at church, but also even losing their faith and becoming agnostic, and in some cases even atheist. So what is important nowadays, it is true that a lot of organized religions do have a great deal of dogma and some things that seem to be man-made, and this does tend to turn off a lot of people now, and there has been a lot of lack of interest, but also there's a real spiritual need too. What we need to do in these cases, even if we don't agree with a lot of the things that may be in the organized religion, we should always steadfastly hold to the real truths and the basic and overall accompanying truths of love, and also the importance of a personal connection between ourselves and God. And that is more of a revelatory religion. And religion, after all, really ends up being a personal thing anyway. It's very individualized. It's not really cookie cutter. And the person has to do things kind of according to their own timing, according to their own personality. There are general guidelines, of course. I mean, you basically need to try to be a kind and fair person, things along this line, and a loving person. But after that, it's rather individualized, and just not to throw the baby out with the bathwater if you happen to lose interest in organized religion.
That's true. Okay, The Peace Pilgrim is a book about a woman who, you can see that, there's a lot of light. She walked across the country, she walked over 25,000 miles for peace and for God. She felt like it was her calling, and she made her life more simplistic and pretty much let go of all the materialistic things and walked across the country for peace. Here's a few quotes from the book that we felt were inspiring.
Oh, and let me just mention a little bit more here. In a nutshell, she actually had been raised in a family that was a very good family. They were honest and talked a lot about philosophy and tried to do good in the community, but they actually did not attend organized religion, and she had never even set foot in a church until she was 16 at a friend's wedding. But she was raised in a good manner, and she did go kind of a little bit on the materialism road, as most people do, until she was about 29. She ended up she was very, very intelligent. In fact, she was reading when she was 3 years old. She graduated a year early from high school. She was captain of the debate team. She got a really good job, making 2 or 3 times as much as her friends in that. Bought a little sports car, had the mink coat and all that kind of stuff, kind of the Marilyn Monroe of her town, and ended up actually marrying a macho, handsome guy, actually a couple of years younger than she was, which didn't last too long, the marriage. But she finally realized that none of these things, all the things she thought would bring her happiness, were bringing her happiness, and she really started on the spiritual path. And to make a long story short, she found that materialism was not going to satisfy her, and that she started to make her number one goal to be connected with God, and living to give instead of to get became her motto. And she'd had about 15 years of preparation before she actually began walking back and forth across the United States, worked with some peace foundations, and did a lot of work with handicapped people and people in need. And eventually she felt her mission was to walk back and forth across America, teaching people how to obtain inner peace and connect with God, regardless of what religion they were or were not. And it was amazing. She went out with no food, only the clothes on her back there, and a toothbrush and a pen, I guess she had, and never asked for food, but she was always, usually given food, and would find people would offer her to stay. Sometimes she'd sleep at the side of the road, and she did this from the time she was about 45 until her death at 73. Just an absolutely amazing woman, very connected with God. She was booked up for years in advance and became, very popular because people couldn't believe how surreal she was. She was always totally in the moment, very peaceful, very joyful, very energetic, totally with that person. She just people could hardly even believe she was for real. But was a wonderful person and taught people about how to obtain inner peace, connection with God. And this is a lot of her words and things that were compiled by some of her friends after she passed away.
Here's one of the quotes. If you're harboring the slightest bitterness toward anyone or any unkind thoughts of any sort whatsoever, you must get rid of them quickly. They are not hurting anyone but you. It isn't enough just to do right things and say right things. You must also think right things before your life can come into harmony. You must learn to forgive yourself as easily as you forgive others.
Yeah, well, what do you think on that one?
Well, I with the end part, I really understand that, because it's easy for people to forgive others, but we kind of hold on to feelings like maybe we might have upset someone and we apologize and they're able to forgive us, but we can't really forgive ourselves for that action. So I can understand that completely. And also with harboring, bitter feelings towards someone, that really is hurting no one but you.
Yeah.
You kind of have to let that go, because you have to move on and keep moving forward.
Right.
Otherwise, it's detrimental.
Yeah, the actions do have to go along with the thinking has to change. And at some point, we do have to realize, it may actually hurt the other person a little bit that you're being mean to them or that you're not forgiving them, and that might bother them. But it's bothering you at least as much or worse, and plus it's hurting our souls when we do that. And of course we expect and want to have forgiveness from God and understanding, so we need to do the same for our fellow man and people that may have wronged us. Another thing I remember she mentioned is she said that she just felt very sorry for the person, if somebody was being very mean and that would be that psychologically sick, that they would, enjoy in or want to do that type of action. If it's something, sometimes people do really mean things and unfair things. Of course, it might be smart to disassociate with them and not, meet with them anymore, but we do need to forgive and kind of move on and realize they're probably a lot more miserable than they're acting to be, because you can't really be mean to other people and truly, be happy. And so the actions and the words needs to go along together.
It's very true. Relinquishment of self-will. You can work on subordinating the lower self by refraining from doing the not good things you may be motivated toward. Not by suppressing them, but transforming them so that the higher self can take over your life. It's like when you think of doing something bad, choose to do something good instead. Use that energy for something good instead of doing that bad thing, because that's probably going to hurt you or someone else.
Yeah. This is so oftentimes people try to, just by sheer willpower, stop a bad habit or stop doing something that they know they shouldn't do. And it is important, to have that, self-discipline and willpower, to stop something if you need to stop it. And sometimes that's all you can do is just use willpower and stop it. But if you do this for long periods of time and it's always just willpower and you're really wanting to do it and you keep wanting to do that thing, at some point, usually a person succumbs and starts that bad habit again or starts doing that thing that they know they shouldn't do again. So that's why she talks about, supplanting that with a superior action, with a good action, with something, actually even a superior affection. It talks about it in the Rancher book, where that same energy to doing that, you find something that you also can enjoy. It could be a new hobby. It could be something you're learning. It's some kind of
Be productive.
sports, doing something productive. Whatever it is, kind of supplant that with a new and superior activity, and gradually you'll get so you enjoy that as much or more than the other, and then you lose interest in the other. So that's one of the superior ways of doing that.
Sounds good. Next is, when you approach others in judgment, they will be on the defensive. When you are able to approach them in a kindly, loving manner without judgment, they will tend to judge themselves and be transformed. People do not like being judged.
Right.
They really don't. That's true. I guess kind of in a sense you gotta approach them in a nice way and just, I don't know, should you tell someone that about themselves in certain ways? That's judging them though, isn't it?
Yeah, do you remember the episode in Peace Pilgrim there we talked about where she went to that bar and there was that person that was quite drunk and I guess people had always judged him and spoke badly of him and had a bad reputation. I guess he had done some bad things. Do you remember how she treated and approached him?
I know she didn't judge him,
right?
But she didn't hug him though, did she?
Well, she said, I think it says she just went up and she started talking with him very friendly and said, she was wishing him the best, and she said that she knew that deep down inside that he wanted to make change or something like that. And anyway, there was no judgment whatsoever, and he could feel that and acceptance. And he says, others have always judged me, and he says, and I've rebelled against that. People get stubborn, when somebody judges them or says something to them, even though they may know it's right. And he says, but I know that I do need to change these things. And so I promise from today forward that I'm not going to take another drink, and that I'm going to change myself. And he actually took his glass right at that time and threw it against the wall and never drank again, and did become a productive citizen in the town.
It's pretty good. Her energy just has goodness.
Yeah, and just the fact that somebody was accepting, and people kind of know, what they're doing is wrong usually, and they've probably been told over and over again. So to accept them and kind of love them, and you don't want to enable them, and you don't have to condone it, of course. And if they don't make changes after a while, you may have to disassociate with them. But at least to show some loving concern and maybe give some encouragement. And usually, if they're a good person and they're wanting to change, and it is that time, they may do the judgment themselves or the analyzation themselves and make the change themselves.
Hopefully.
Right.
Live this day. Yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Never agonize over the past or worry over the future. Live this day and live it well.
Yes.
Live today instead of yesterday and tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's all we ever have. You've heard the saying that the present is a present. All we ever really have is the present. We certainly don't have the past. That's gone, and it's only a memory in our minds usually.
Yes.
And in fact, if we had a lobotomy or we had that part of our brain taken out, sometimes the unfortunate experiences or things that were really bothering us, we wouldn't even remember it. It would be non-existent.
True.
So we can't keep regretting and fretting over the past. The future we never have. You always only have the present, and you don't know how the future is exactly going to turn out anyway. Like we talked about, I think last week. And as Mark Twain has said, I've known a great number of problems in my days, and most of them never happened. So it's not going to do any good for us to worry about things, only to the degree that we might, do some action to make the future better. But living each day faithfully, that's really all we can do anyway, and to enjoy it and fully appreciate it, and not have the fear looming above us and with us.
Yeah. Live life to the fullest. Live now. The most important part of prayer is what we feel, not what we say. We spend a great deal of time telling God what we think should be done, and not enough time waiting in the stillness for God to tell us what to do. God knows what's best for us more than we know what's best for us, more than we think we know what's best for us.
Right. It seems like always in our prayer, and I can remember back too when I was younger, I was always praying for God to do this and that, and directing Him around to bless this person or bless that person. And when you think about it, I mean, God is much wiser and loving and knowledgeable than we are. So He already knows the needs of people. He knows our needs, and He knows them much better than we do. And who are we to be trying to direct God around? It's like a 2-year-old trying to direct their parents around, telling them what's right because they think they know what's right, or they think they know what's best for them, which of course they don't. So we have to trust, especially when it comes to our spiritual development and different things, that God does know the best for us. And so more listening is really more appropriate. Yeah. And starting out the prayer with, thanks for what we already do have, in an attitude of thankfulness and appreciation, which makes us more receptive to the spiritual connection. And then, if anything, I know it talks about in your answer book too, and here that to ask for more wisdom and for more faith and for more courage and for more patience and those type of things. And then, of course, we can much better do our jobs and other things that we may need to do, and have a better focus and maybe make better decisions. But you just the other day kind of reminded me, because I've been a lot of decisions and things working on now after my prayer, and to just stay a little bit longer and listen, which I know that, and I've done it in the past, and then sometimes kind of forget. I do the prayer and kind of go through different things and scenarios that have to be figured out, but sometimes don't take the time to really listen. And a lot of times, the impression will come that's quite a bit different than what you're trying to figure out, and you think you've kind of made a good decision, but there's so many options sometimes that you just no way to figure it out, and you kind of just have to listen. So,
Meditation helps communion with God.
right.
But those are our quotes from the Peace Pilgrim. You can actually get a free copy at peacepilgrim.org. Again, that's peacepilgrim.org. It's a really inspiring motivational book. I think a lot of people probably get some inspiration from it. I actually sent 2 of them to my mom and my aunt, and I hope they're reading it.
Good. And this is a very easy read. It's less than 200 pages. The Rancher book is over 2,000 pages, much more detailed and comprehensive. But this is a great, inspiring book. You can read it free online immediately, just going to peacepilgrim.org, and then they will send you a free copy, and they're very happy to do so. And the organization, volunteer, has been going on since Peace Pilgrim's death in about 1981, and they've never asked for contributions, although they do welcome them. And a lot of people do donate, but those that don't have the money or whatever, they just send the books free.
Yeah, that's true. So go to that website and pick up this book. You won't regret it. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. I felt I was more than prepared for the ultimate catch, but nothing could prepare me for him.